Thank you for being here. I hope that the video so far hasn't made you seasick. I know that I was moving the camera around a lot. I was trying to make it interesting for you guys. But time for a debrief on the trip. So it was me, Ryan, my sister Morgan, and her husband Stuart. We started out just outside of LA. We visited with our aunt and uncle, Debbie and Bob. They live in this beautiful house that's right on the water, and it's sort of these canals that go through the neighborhood, and then there's this big lake, and they all get around the neighborhood by boat. And so that was really fun. We went out to dinner, and then Debbie and Bob took us out on their boat, and it's such a magical little fairyland. There's literally wild swans that are swimming in the canals. And my aunt told us that she communicates with her neighbors by throwing a message in a bottle on their dock. And I just think that that's really fun and whimsical. We were only there for one day, unfortunately. But the next day, we drove into downtown LA. We started out at Bob's Big Boy. And we chose to go here because I'm a big fan of the director David Lynch. Rest in peace. Apparently, he used to go to this diner every day at 2:30, and he would order a chocolate milkshake and coffee. And so that's what we did in honor of him. And after that, we drove straight to Topanga. And I actually heard about Topanga from the YouTube channel Carissa Love. She creates very magical, sort of medieval content. I'll link her channel up here. And it's a very just like kind of hippie town. It's really chill, and there's lots of little shops and restaurants. So we bopped around town, and then we were staying in this Airbnb called the Japanese Tea House, which was really cool. Me and Ryan were staying on the first floor, and then Morgan and Stuart were upstairs in this sort of treehouse looking room. And the kitchen was actually outside on the porch. They had a refrigerator and sink and cabinets and everything just like right outside of the house, which I thought was really unique. And I have a crazy story about when we were staying here. So since we were in Topanga, we chose Could Be Fun to partake in a little extracurricular activity. It's green and rhymes with Swede. I chose not to this time because it tends to spike my anxiety. But it was really fun. Everyone was just like laughing, having a good time. Morgan, Stuart, and Ryan got really sleepy and went up to bed. And around midnight, I hear this banging on our front door. And it wasn't like a human like knocking or trying to get in. It was like some sort of creature was throwing itself at the door. And so I like sat right up, and I was really freaked out. And I kind of like try and wake up Ryan. I'm like, Ryan, I think that someone might be trying to get into our house. And he just sort of like rolls over and he goes, and he just like goes right back to bed. And he does not remember this happening. But basically, I was left all alone. I had to hold down the fort. So I'm like sitting upright. This being is like banging at the door for probably at least 20 minutes. No exaggeration. I basically did not sleep. It went away eventually. I didn't do anything. I was just like staring at the door, just trying to be ready in case anything happened. They went away. The next morning, it was time for us to do our big drive from Topanga all the way up to Monterey. And everyone comes downstairs and they wake up and they're like, wow, I slept so well. Like, I feel so rested. And I was honestly kind of grumpy and tired. So I was like, I literally have not slept this entire time. And so we're getting ready to leave and go on our big journey. And go outside, and there's this sign that we just like conveniently didn't even notice. And it said, watch out for bears. So I'm pretty sure that we had a little bear friend who tried to get in. There was no like claw marks or anything outside though. So it's still a mystery to me. Maybe we encountered some sort of cryptid out in the woods. So hey, if you know of any in California and that sounds like it might fit the description, then you let me know. But of course, conveniently, it was only me who experienced this, and no one else remembers or even has any idea that this happened. So anyway, then it was time to make our long drive. And we were really just driving up the Pacific Coast Highway for most of the day. We made a few stops along the way. We got to see this elephant seal lookout, which was really cool. And I think we stopped for dinner, but we really didn't do much. By the time we got to our hotel in Monterey, we were all just so tired that we went and got an In-N-Out burger and brought it back to the hotel. And I didn't really get much footage that day. But then the next day, we drove back down to Big Sur and we went on this big hike. I think it was called Buzzard's Roost. And I think it was my favorite part of the whole trip. It was really fun. It was so beautiful. We encountered all sorts of wild animals. We saw a little cat and we saw lots of birds. After the hike, we went to a really nice restaurant called Nepenthe, I think, and it was right on the water, overlooking the beautiful cliffs. It was very scenic. Later that evening, we went to Carmel by the Sea, and we watched the sunset on the beach. So that was just a really lovely day out in nature, and it was very restful. And the next day, we went back to Carmel and had breakfast on the beach, and there was a little art fair that we walked through, and then it was time to drive up to San Francisco. It was my first time in San Francisco, and I loved it. It was really fun. Sadly, we had to part ways with Morgan and Stuart here because they had to hop on a flight to go to a wedding that weekend. So it's just me and Ryan. We got really good Chinese food before we had to say goodbye to Morgan and Stuart. But it was such a fun weekend. We went shopping. We tried out all the different types of public transportation in the city, except for the Waymo cars, because they just felt a little bit dystopian to me. We looked at all the Victorian houses, which is probably my favorite part. Oh, we saw Chonker, I think his name is, the sea lion, at the pier. Really, I think that was about it. But overall, it was just a really silly and restful trip. I loved getting to spend time with my family. I loved being out in nature and seeing all sorts of different wildlife, the sea lions and the elephant seals and the potential bear cryptid thing and the wild cat on our hike. So yeah, I think that's it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you guys next time.